What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Ultra MK podcast. And I am your host, Matt Kennedy. And together we are reversing the narrative. And I am super excited for my guest I have on the show today. Literally, it was a divine appointment. I can't put it any other way because of the way in which we've made a connection through a woman who I haven't even really met in person yet. I've only built like a friendship digitally with a mutual friend. But because the the previous episode I had done with her, she felt that I needed to know my next guest.
Mm.
And he was so humble and friendly enough to want to just get to know me last week. And I said, dude, I really want to bring you on my show. And so I'm very excited today to introduce all of you guys in the Ultra MK podcast network to my new friend, Lucas Mack. He is a coach, he's a motivational speaker, and he has an amazing story about his childhood and his past. Some of the scars and some of the darkness of his childhood have really turned him into somebody who can be the speaker of truth and healing of people, that you don't have to be stuck in those traumatic situations. He is a best-selling author of a book called Everyone Has a Plan Until They Get Punched in the Face. Super creative. I can't wait to ask him how he came up with that. He's also spoken on the TEDx or TED Talk stages. He's also the host of his own show called The Lucas Mack Show. And I am so thankful to have him on my show. Lucas Mack.
That is our obligation, to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
What's up, brother? How you
Yo,
been?
brother, man, I'm doing really well. So honored to be on your show, and everyone uh, listening. Matt came on my show, and I'm about to release that episode, and we just hit it off, and it was really beautiful, brother. So thanks for having me on your show, and excited to chop it up and see what God has in store for this.
Dude, I can't, like, anytime anybody ever brings up your name around me, I'm always going to say, like, that was totally a divine appointment, me meeting that guy at that point
Mm.
in that timeline of my life. Because, like, I recently had someone really close to me. I confided in her, and she said, Matt, you need healing still. You need some deep healing. Because I shared a lot of information with her in such a short amount of time. And literally, that was 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. And then here comes Lucas Mack, like literally God sending him into my life, inadvertently, but always for a reason. And so, um, bro, if you don't mind, I just wanted you to kind of like start to unpack, because like I said earlier before the show started, you just have this such an extensive resume. I mean, you're
Mm.
literally dealing with Fortune 500 company executives and CEOs,
Yeah.
leaders of all different backgrounds, probably faith leaders. I know you're a strong Christian and a man of faith.
Mm.
You've read the Bible, cover to cover multiple times.
Yeah.
But can you really kind of explain where you came from
Mm.
and just kind of let us know how God's been using you.
Mm. Well, brother, I in my TED Talk, I describe the two words that define my childhood are fear and confusion. I was afraid every single day, every day, every day. And I was incredibly confused. And what I mean by confused is I grew up in a religious home. We'd go to church. My parents would, play in the worship on Sunday mornings. Wednesday night we'd go to church. Thursday night would be worship practice. And I grew up in this family on my dad's side, very don't even know how to describe the level of Catholic they are. And then on my mom's side was this Jewish evangelical mix. And so I had this, I don't know, confluence of different religions, confluence of different doctrines, and claiming to be right and immediately claiming who isn't right and who's wrong. And all at the same time, this veneer of we look like the perfect family. I mean, literally, when I started telling my story, one of my best friends from junior high on, still really good friends with him to this day, he said he used to judge his family against my family. And I'm like, bro, you had no idea. No one knew. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, yeah, I grew up, got abused in every category. In my TED Talk, I talk about religious abuse as well. And I think that shocks a lot of people of, well, what do you mean by religious abuse? And I can just describe that and define that. But, there's verbal, emotional, sexual, physical,
Mhm.
um, religious, psychological. There's all these different components of what makes up the wholeness of who we are. And the word abuse gets misnomered or it gets redirected um, as something people see on TV or something people see in movies. And yes, I think there's been a lot of light brought to it, but it's almost made a caricature of that act. When in reality, I don't think any human being on this planet has come through the birth canal till now without some experience of being abused. And what I mean by that is if you take a latex balloon and you fill it up, and you blow that balloon up to its fullest extent. Everyone loves a balloon. It's like a kid's joy to see a balloon. Birthday parties, balloon announcements, celebration. What is it about a balloon? Just because something inside has expanded the container of that latex and it's uplifting. Well, I look at our life and our experience as a balloon, and anything that comes and squeezes that, sometimes for a long time, sometimes in moments, but squeezes that over time, it starts to lose the inside air. And what happens is we have a bunch of deflated balloons laying around. And I ask people, what's the difference between uh, the balloon before and after the air was in it? It's still the same piece of latex. It's still plastic, but it lost its purpose. It lost its sense of direction. Well, how? Because we have experienced pain in one way, shape, or form, and we don't know how to get out of it, how to get out of this brokenness. And I grew up in church where, you forgive, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. But also, Jesus says, if you don't forgive them, then God's not going to forgive you. And then it's like, whoa, I better forgive. And so you feel this guilt ridden, something's wrong with me. And I talked to actually one of my direct reports at work today. And I said, an abused child never looks at the abuser and says, what is wrong with you? The abused child takes the abuse from the abuser and says, what is wrong with me
Mm-hmm.
that they would do this to me?
Mm-hmm.
Something's wrong with me. I must be broken.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this very early on, my earliest memories when it started, I was 3 years old. And um, I don't know how did it, I don't want to get into the family thing too much, but I will say that I threw myself into church and I threw myself into um, Christianity deeply. I was junior high. I was the pray around the flagpole leader and started that. And I was high school,
When'd you
led the
graduate high
worship.
school, Lucas?
When?
Yeah, what year?
2000.
Bro, me too. We're just like the same
Oh, here
age.
we go. Here
Yeah,
we
let's
go.
go,
That's
baby.
great.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you were in like a Christian club at your school?
Yeah, there wasn't even a Christian club. I just like put flyers around and I'm like, hey, we're gonna do this and did it. But I would ask Jesus into my heart 3 different times. I never felt saved. I always felt broken. I always felt dirty. I always felt like I had this tar on me that I couldn't wash off. And it was confusing because we go to church and I'd see how people saw our family, but then behind closed doors, it was literally it could be screaming and violence and breaking things and shattering things, and then immediately like,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
walk
Hi,
in
we're the
and go,
Joneses.
hey, and oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now, like it's turned into a skill for me because people look, I present a certain way, I speak a certain way, but that also was the double-edged sword because I had to do that to if I made my family look bad in any way, it would only be worse. So I started to live this duality, the mask that I presented to the world, and then the inner true self of things I was struggling with. So I got to the point where I was depressed my junior and senior year of high school. I couldn't get out of bed. And then 19 years old, I'm anorexic. So I'm 6'3" right now, probably weigh more than I should by, a good way. But I got down to 172 and I'm 250 right now. So and I was only going lower. And then 6 months later, try to drive off a bridge and take my life. But the night that I didn't die, this concept of God, which I was always confused about. For instance, like I'm 17 years old. This is before cell phone. I mean, cell phones were, the kind of around there, like the Zach Morris brick cell phone,
Yeah. We were more the pager.
Yeah, yeah,
We had
yeah, that's
pagers,
right.
bro.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I pull up, I had gone to dinner with this girl that I was dating, and I pull up in her driveway. It was 11:10. I'll never forget this, 11:10 at night. And pull up in her drive. All of a sudden, this car comes right behind me with its lights on, slams right behind me, and keeps its brights shining. And I'm like, "What the heck?" And the girl's like, "What?" She was freaked out. And I go, I think that's my dad." And I get out of the car, and he's like, "Get home now." And I'm like, "Shit!" Like, okay, I got to get home. I have no idea how he knew where I was, and I didn't do any. I wasn't breaking curfew. There's nothing wrong of what I did. But this,
Was
I'm
this
going to give
a
you
school
context.
night? You were in high school and it's like a
No,
school night?
it was a Friday night.
Friday night.
And the next morning I see him, I go, how did you know where I was? And I mean, I don't even understand still to this day the timing of how was he waiting there? Did he know? I mean, I don't understand. But he told me the next morning, I go, how did you know where I was? And he goes, God told me. And I literally believe that God told him and lived. And that's just when I'm 17. That's like I believe that he was God. Like my father was the epitome of God, and he was so connected in the violence, in the abuse, in the
Mm,
sexual and physical, in the screaming and the violence and all the chaos. I had this confusion twisted of wait, God, yeah, God talks to him. I better not speak up, speak out, try to be better, I was a prolific people pleaser.
mm,
I was the epitome of golden retriever on its back,
mm.
exposing the belly, just trying not to get hurt. And the night that I didn't die, and it was November 20th, I went on this journey, man, because I finally knew for myself that God was real. It wasn't theory anymore. It wasn't like me trying to know, trying to believe, wishing like it was real, wanting to be saved, wanting to someone to come save me. I knew without a shadow of a doubt God is real. But then I went on this journey of how then to know this God who's real. And for 14 years, I never missed a morning or night reading the Bible, never missed a morning or night praying on my knees, never missed a morning or night. It didn't matter. Sometimes I'd, have too much to drink. I'd still read the Bible every single night. It didn't matter what time it was I went to bed. And looking back, looking back, all I was trying to do is free myself of the pain, the suffering, the confusion, the shame that I had carried because from that night of 20 years old, I never not one time. Not this is not being hyperbolic. I never looked back before that night. I stopped and I would talk about I died that night, even though I didn't die. I died metaphysically. And when I met my wife 2 years later, we were dating, and I would just like lightly talk about, oh, I kind of had a tough childhood. Oh, my dad, he's pretty nuts, and oh yeah, it was pretty crazy. I just never talked about it until I had 3 children, could never bathe one of them. And every day, every moment, never would talk about it. And I was a published author. I've been on TV all over the country. I've been on CNN. I've done all these things, multi-million-dollar company, all the things on the outside. And I was so full of shame and so full of self-hatred. I hated myself. In fact, when I used to pray, I used to say, God, please take my mind away. Give me your mind filled infinitely with your wisdom, your discernment, discretion, your knowledge, your understanding, ability to retain information, ability to think things through, deeper intellect. Please take my eyes and ears away. Please give me your eyes to see, your ears to hear. Please take my heart away. Please give me your heart filled infinitely. And I'd go through this whole thing and I say, please kill me. I would want to die. And I used to think that if I was just etheric clothing to the Holy Spirit, I had finally achieved what Jesus says, be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. I thought, well, I must die to self. And I talk about this whole narrative of everyone wants the upper room, but no one wants Calvary to get to the upper room. Everyone wants heaven. No one wants to die to get there. And I thought that that was the right path. And I led a ministry and I'd done a lot of preaching. But in 2016, I'm 34 years old. I started having flashbacks. And it's funny to even say that because I had built up such a judgment. I was the most judgmental person, bro. I was a verbal assassin. I mean, I would lead so many people to Jesus, quote unquote. I mean, did they say the Romans roadmap prayer? Yeah. Did I lead them to the Lord? Yeah. Where are they today? I don't know. And are they really saved? I don't know. But I've gotten a lot of people to say those prayers. And that just added to my own ego of I'm smarter. I've read more, can speak more, more articulate, more intellectual, until I started having these flashbacks, and it humbled me. I used to have judgment like flashbacks. So stop being a little,
Little
BITC.
bitch. Yeah.
Stop being a
You
bitch.
feel
Like
free,
just
you can, yeah, be
okay,
yourself,
yeah,
brother.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't hold back, please.
Just stop being a bitch. Like tough it out.
Yeah.
Like oh boo hoo. Fuck. Like just
Yeah.
tough it out.
Yeah.
But bro, when I started having the flashbacks, I did not understand what was going on because all those, and I used to sit around with my buddies, entrepreneurs, very successful guys. We'd sit around a fire once a week, called it Whiskey and Wisdom. Uh,
That's like
both
my kind
things
of
I really,
fire.
yeah, yeah, both things I really enjoy. And I used to ask once I, got comfortable around my friends, like, hey, do you guys have first person memories of your childhood? And they'd say, yeah. And I'd be like, man, I don't have first person. I have third person memories because I used to float over my body.
Mm.
And I had ran away 3 different times. It was a rough situation. But all those third person memories became first person in one night like that. And there was a catalyst of what triggered it. But ultimately, I had to go back and face every single thing that I had striven, whatever that word is. I
Hmm.
had tried so hard to outrun it, outthink it, out articulate it, out know it, out tough it out, like be stronger, bigger, tougher, all the things. And it was faster than all of that. And it caught up with me. And I was broken. I was again scared and confused. And all that I wanted, all that I think I've ever wanted was truth. I just want the truth. Just tell the truth. No matter how much it hurts, I had to tell my wife I had an emotional affair. Like that was the catalyst and all these different things. And like, why was I broken? Why couldn't I bathe my kids? Why could I barely change a diaper? Why was I so ashamed about my anatomy? And every time I shower or pee I remember one guy, and I'm just opening it up and telling you, I guess, all these things. But I remember asking, hey, this is only, I'm 37, 38 years old. I'm asking my buddies, same whiskey and wisdom guys. I was like, hey, like, did your dad used to like pee with you in the toilet? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, is that weird that like my dad used to for as long as I can remember, he'd call it sword fighting and they're like, yeah, man, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's weird, right? Like I needed someone else to calibrate this internal compass that was so broken inside of me and not knowing what was good, bad, I don't know. But on the outside, everyone thought I had everything together. I had the
Hmm.
answers. And I share all this to say, I think your question was like, how'd you get in this? I went on a journey to face every single dark, dirty, disgusting, vile thing that I've ever experienced and look it straight in the eye and find my voice in it. Now, to speak for that child then who had no voice. And this is one of the things that I help men and I help women. But I really believe that when men heal, the world will heal because we're the container, we're the safety mechanism. People feel safe. The violent man who has the capability of violence but doesn't do that. See, Jesus says, be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. Gentleness is one of the fruits of the spirit: love, joy, peace, long suffering, goodness, gentleness, faith, temperance, meekness. Against such there is no law. Well, what is gentle? Gentle is someone who has the ability to inflict pain upon another, but when you feel that hand on your shoulder, oh,
Hmm.
this is someone being gentle. A
Hmm.
weak person can't be gentle. A weak person's just weak. You don't feel gentleness from weakness, you feel gentleness from strength.
Would you be able to interchange uh, the word grace with that as well? Like having grace, or is that a little bit different?
That's a good question. I would say grace, I've always defined grace as something given that we didn't have to earn.
Hmm.
Mercy is something withheld that we have earned. Um, And so, yeah, I would say grace goes with gentleness because there's an intention behind it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that, and there's a reason. There's a reason why letters start with same or words start with same letters: God,
Hmm.
good, grace,
Hmm.
gentleness. You can string all these together.
Hmm.
Um, but what I learned is that unless we go back and face everything and stop making platitudes and excuses and like, hey, I'm okay now, we're not okay.
Hmm.
We're just not. We're not. Everyone listening, you might be very successful making millions of dollars in your life, and that's great. But at the end of the day, we're not the people that we wished we could be until we go back and heal those parts that we don't want to expose. If God is God of all, if Jesus, there's a Leonard Ravenhill, this old preacher, said, "Why if Jesus isn't Lord of all, he's not Lord at all, because Lord's an absolute term." And I used to wrestle with that, like, okay, then I got to give God everything. God, I give you everything. I give you my heart, my hopes, my dreams, my past, my present, my future, like everything in mine. And God's like, yeah, that's cool, but will you give me the time where you molested? I'm like, oh, what are you talking about, God? I can quote you the scripture, like I can recite the Bible. Oh, yeah, will you can quote? Will you? Yeah, God, I'll give you, over here. But God's like, yeah, but will you? Are you willing to face the time that you were stripped down and beaten? Well, no, I wasn't, because I didn't want to feel that again. I didn't want to think about it again. I didn't want to deal with it again until I had to, because the flashbacks caught up with me. So I don't even know where I'm going with this answer. It's very long, but I think you're hearing my heart is I want to help people be free. This is we're entering the era of truth.
Yeah.
But truth can't be external if it's not truth internal. If we value truth externally, but don't value the truth internally, then there's no way we can be free. Jesus said, "You shall know intimately, just as Adam knew his wife, is the same. You shall know intimately inside of us the truth. And the truth shall, I like the King James Bible says, make you free."
Mhm.
And I don't think we're free because we haven't been able to face the truth. And it is scary. But that's why we got brothers and friends, and there's people that can stand with us. And I'm on a mission to help people. Not everyone was abused. I understand people are like, wow, this guy's exaggerating. What I'm saying is everyone had their balloon squeezed.
Mhm.
And even if it was once, that air that got squeezed out of you is supposed to be back inside you. And the only way to do that is to go back inside, not try to put air from the outside in. You have to go from the inside out.
Yeah, it's such a great analogy, and I love when I like just talking with you, like we spoke over the phone the other day, and you knew about things like deliverance and
Yeah.
spiritual warfare,
Yep.
and you've studied the Bible and you've been, totally transformed through your own personal walk with Christ, not religion.
Right.
To me, that speaks my language, Lucas,
Mm.
because I feel that I'm kind of getting a crash course into who I'm supposed to become based on what God has intended for me, something that I can't plan out myself.
Mm.
And meeting you, hearing your story, it really helps me unpack where I'm going on my journey.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that have had less than perfect, very imperfect upbringings.
Yep.
Yours is a little bit more, I wouldn't say worse, but it's a different type of trauma
Yeah.
that is specific. And I love that you're able to share this with an audience and not be afraid or ashamed about it because I know there's tons of people out there that are held back. And then what happens is, if you look at it from the physical realm, there's so many things out there that are trying to capture our attention in order to give up ourselves,
Yeah.
whether it be through an addiction or something that they want to numb themselves because they don't know where or how to treat
Right.
their trauma. And so they end up giving themselves with time and resources, broken relationships
Yep.
into something that kind of spirals them into a direction that God never wanted them to go in.
That's right.
And so this is an amazing time to be alive, I think, because
Yeah.
there's people out there like you who are pioneering this path of healing and forgiveness and of becoming a better person and
Mm.
laying it on the altar for God to say, welcome back, my
Mm.
son, my
Yeah.
servant.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and if those out there you don't know the Lord yet, that's all right. I mean, you're going to take something from this podcast. I guarantee you're going to take something away from this podcast that'll help resonate maybe with what you're going through. But
Mm.
um, so okay, so you were 20. You said that you had died to yourself. It's like a term that I hear a lot when people get water baptized.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so from that time forward, is that when you kind of really try to sort out religion from relationship with God?
Yeah. It's interesting. I worked in this deliverance ministry after this, but I went to this deliverance ministry since I was in fifth grade. And I will never forget this guy. This is just months after, but all of a sudden I was getting down what I call downloads now, but like God
Hmm.
was speaking to me, opening up
Hmm.
things. I would get these full full understanding of the Bible. And then later I'd be reading like a Charles Spurgeon, one of his books, and he's talking about this thing. And I'm like, wow, like how would there's no way I would have known it. God was speaking to me greatly. And this guy said to me, he goes, if you want to have the power of God in your life, you need to read the King James Bible. And I got really pissed. I like felt the flinching, like my gut. But it was
Hmm.
interesting because I was so humbled at the time that I recognized whatever that flinch was inside of me, that like recoil, I didn't want that. So I was like,
Hmm.
well, what is that inside of me? All this, one guy says one thing and I get this like response. So I'm like, I'm going to go explore that. So I started studying why there's more than 500 Bible versions in English language. You can ask ChatGPT or any Grok or whatever, what's the most translated and iterated book in any language in the world? And it's the Bible. And then you question, well, why is that? How is that? What is it? It's all, is it all the same thing if it says the cover, but what if it's not? And so I went down this path and I joined Young Life. I was on staff, not just volunteers on staff. And then I left and started my own ministry as worship leader at churches. And I was really, um, I was striving for holiness. And I would lead retreats and do a lot of things. But ultimately, I'm just telling you, like looking back, what I was trying to do is find a way to be clean from all the shame and dirtiness that I experienced as a child. I just wasn't able to bring those memories to the surface. And I would get really angry. I was angry at the church. I was angry at Christians. I was angry at, I wanted to like destroy it. I thought like Samson, if I could just push these pillars down and bring it all down, like, um, I've had a lot of anger. It's only been, I think, really this year that I've really like getting clear on the anger. And, Jesus says, be angry and sin not, and sin being an archer's term of missing the mark. So if the mark is holiness and we go off the side and we miss it, well, everyone sins. The Bible says, for all sin, it comes short of the glory of God. But what God cannot allow is when we miss the mark, say, I didn't miss the mark. It's exactly where I was shooting. God cannot accept two standards when against his standard, another standard against his standard. So it takes a lot of humility to go, okay, I did miss the mark and I was striving for holiness. But when I started having flashbacks and I had finished reading the Bible for the seventh time, cover to cover, and I was angry because I didn't feel any different. I knew more, I could recite more, and I had read all of Spurgeon's, all of Finney's work, all of Leonard Ravenhill, Tozer. Uh, I mean, my library is full of books, and I knew a lot more, but there was something inside me that I was still, I didn't even understand how to access it. And one of the things that was really hard for me and the anger that I had at the church and in Christianity is this concept of forgiveness. Because if let's break down like this concept, like, do you forgive them? Well, you're asking the victim to essentially accept the victimizer's actions. Oh, victim, do you forgive them? If you don't forgive the victimizer, if you don't forgive the abuser, guess what? God's not going to forgive you. That is absolute 100% a fallacy. That is not true. And here's why. The word love in Hebrew is the word ahava. 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 Ahava means to give. For God so loved the world that he what?
He gave.
Gave. Aha. Yeah. Because God gives. The masculine, why we call God Father, because in the masculine form, God gives. We're the bride of Christ because we are, that's a feminine term, not for gender, but a term of energy. The bride receives the groom's giving. It's a union of oneness.
Hmm.
Okay, so ahava means to give. So to give is love unconditionally. So forgive is like foresight, foreknowledge, forbearance. It is to love as if it never happened. It doesn't mean to
Forget.
accept,
Forget. Wow.
forget, get all of these. Yeah,
Hmm.
what's the difference between forget and forgive? Getting and giving. One is receiving and one is letting go. And what Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, meaning love them as if it never happened. Stephen, the first martyr, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, meaning love them as if it never happened. And yet, we don't have to accept what they did.
Hmm.
The teaching of how we've been raised in a system that isn't, you know, if we continue the narrative of forgiving means to the victim to accept the victimizer's actions, then okay, we should be thriving right now because there's tons of people forgiving abusive people. And like, I don't see the world getting better. I don't see humanity waking up with that narrative. But I'm telling you, the narrative means to love them as if it never happened. And that does not mean we're to be in relationship with them or we have to be around them or we have to accept their actions. And it's confused Christians of justice because if you forgive them, well, how can you hold justice to their account?
Right.
It's
Right.
it's contradicting. No, I
Right.
love you as if it never happened. And if I did the same thing you did to me, I would expect the same actions done to me, the same consequence done to me. And this is how things become logical and in their right place. Now, this is also where grace comes in, because sometimes there is grace when the repentant heart is there. But if the repentant heart is not there,
Hmm. It's not going to
so
be
it's
received. Yeah.
exactly right. And so I guess where I'm going with all this is it took me on this journey to really get clear on what is the Bible? What is the point of all of this? Did the
Hmm.
Bible exist during the time of people living in the Bible? No. Did they have a canonized 66 books from Genesis to Revelation? No. Did Jesus have the Bible? No. No one in the Bible had the Bible. And yet we have emasculated ourselves. And I love the Bible. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a quantum playbook, no doubt. But it has been weaponized against our own intellect.
Yes.
And we have lost our sense of sovereignty because popery
Hmm.
and priestcraft in the form of non-denominationalism
Hmm.
and Romanism, which
Hmm.
is all this. You can go to a Mormon ward, or you can
Hmm.
go to Jehovah Witness. You can go to any evangelical church in the world. You can go to any Catholic church. It's the same setting. There is one person dictating to a bunch of people, and the implication is this is the only way, this is the right way, and there's a guilt and a judgment. And I'm saying that God existed before this form, God will exist after this form. God and us, there is no mediator. And Jesus is the example. It's interesting, these Bible versions, and I'm just going to go here. In John 14:6, in King James Bible, which was never called the King James Bible. King James didn't want it to be called the King James Bible. He actually was, they attempted two assassination plots on his life because he gave the Bible to the common man and distributed it. So because the Bible at the time was locked and chained to the pulpit and people couldn't read a lot of them. So he wrote that book in a fifth grade reading level. So everyone is like, it's hard to read. Well, in 1611, that was a fifth grade reading level. So let's not be prideful and thinking we're more intellectual, more smart, more. We're not. We've declined in a
Oh,
significant
we've dumbed down for sure, dude.
100%,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in John 14:6, in the King James Bible, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. And in 1881, so you have 1611, that book comes out. 1611, 1711, you have 100 years, 1711, 1811. Wow, a lot of things have happened. The United States has
Hmm.
birthed, freedom has happened. Slavery was declared illegal in the British Empire in 1806.
Hmm.
Okay, so those 200 years, significant change around the world. 1811 all the way to 1881, almost 300 years later, the next version of the English Bible comes out, the revised version. And they changed many things, many words. But from 1881 now, every Bible exists today matches the 1881 revised version. And you hear in every church, or this church we go to, they always dog the King James Bible. But you know what they changed in John 14:6? Jesus still says, I am the way, the truth, the life. They didn't change that. But what they changed was instead of saying, no man comes to the Father but by me, they changed it to what? Through
Through
me.
me.
Ah,
Hmm.
so all of a sudden, this message of sovereignty and march on, oh Christian soldier, and strength and breaking, abolitionists, true abolitionists, the
Hmm.
true abolitionists were the Christians.
Hmm.
Strength and honor and duty and being men of honor and
Hmm.
husbands of honor and wives of honor and families and children and raise them up in a way they should go in honor. change to no, you can't be a sovereign yourself, and you have to be less than and go through. And Jesus
Hmm.
never said go through. He said, stand by me. I
Next to
and my
me. Yeah.
Father are one. Yes. So
Hmm.
think about what happens in the 1880s. You have the progressive era starting. You
Hmm.
have the US declaring bankruptcy and the corporation starting.
That's right.
Everything starts in the 1880s that takes us to this day so confused, so lost that the church, there's great worship, yeah, but there's not a sense of tell the truth of your own life. Don't try to look for external truth if you're not willing to look at the truth inside yourself. And the truth hurts sometimes because we have to scrape out that cancerous growth, the scar tissue that's inhibiting mobility emotionally. And so I think part of the awakening right now is telling the truth about the world we live in, but also discovering the truth about the inner world that we've lived with and have ignored and have been gaslit to think you don't have to look at those things. And to your point, and I don't judge. One of the things I talk about in my TED talk is I stop judging people, man. It's like behavior is an output of an internal belief system. This is what I say in my TED talk. And behavior is an output of an internal belief system. And when people have been treated the worst as little children, well, what do you think their belief system about themselves is going to be as they grow into adults with even more pressure, no one to be there, no one to protect them? We all want that father covering. We all want that someone to save us. And then you look at liberals and we judge liberals like, well, they look at the government to save them. Yeah, because everyone's broken.
Everyone's broken. That's right.
Everyone is broken. And we need to tell the truth that God is not a talisman. You don't say Jesus, if the name of Jesus alone is magic, then every time someone curses and uses his name, like thunder should happen. Like it's
Right.
it's the intention behind it. Everything is about intention, no different than a firearm is a good thing in a good person's hands,
Right.
a bad thing in a bad person's hands. A car is a good thing in a responsible person's, care, and a bad. It's all about the person and the
Yeah.
intent behind it,
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I think that this great awakening that we are in, and as we speak, it's affecting the secular world as well as the American church. And
Yeah,
I think that COVID really woke up a lot of people to the way that their leaders within their churches were going to operate with all of these mandates given by governors. And, I think that a lot, and then going back to like the Johnson Amendment, after President Kennedy was assassinated, it seems like the American church has kind of been hamstrung
yeah,
to, from a financial perspective based on their tax status and tax exemption.
yeah,
I think that was definitely something that was put in place for a reason, but I don't think should be always kept as an excuse for why church pastors and people shouldn't be actually preaching truth and standing on what's right instead of being afraid on whatever sermon they're giving about who they're going to offend,
right.
and they don't want to touch anything political. I'm sorry, the world is politics. Everything around us is politics. It
Yeah,
affects
right,
every waking moment and
right,
sleeping moment of our life. How can you not talk about what's going on in politics?
right.
So, as my pastor, Pastor Dave Bryan would say, this is the great American religious enterprise, and it
Mm,
has to be exposed because
yeah,
it's a type of business entity. And we're not helping people at all by sugarcoating,
right.
what's going on. It has to be told directly as if God is speaking.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, but yeah, no, it's wild times that we're living through.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
with this process within yourself, when did you really start to see things change for you?
Mm,
What was it? Was it things that you normally would be upset about? You felt a difference and you're like, hey, I'm not upset about that. Or
mm.
was it relationships that were, what was it that really kind of was showing you that? the healing that was happening
Yeah, that's
with
good.
you was beginning to show, fruit from what this transformation was becoming.
Mm.
What's some of the indicators?
Matt, I've done a lot of podcasts, been guests, and I've been asked a lot of questions. No one has ever asked me that question. That is truly a good and great question. And um, man, so many things. I mean, you can get choked up. A lot of things changed. But over time, like layers, like an onion, there's all these layers to the onion, and you finally get to the core. And um, I mean, I'm just thinking back in 2016 in May is when it all started. And well, my oldest was 5, my middle was 3, my youngest was um, just born. And I used to, my oldest, and I don't know how many times, I'd say maybe 10 at most, not a lot, but I'd spank them. I thought that's the way to do it. And I never did it in anger. I'd always talk to her first and say, this is what you did, and I'm going to have to do it. And, I never did it hard because it just broke me. And then my son got it twice, never hard, um, never with a belt, never any of that stuff, just my hand. But that was the first thing that I stopped, the first thing,
Mhm.
the absolute first thing. And I started like I mean, my brain broke open to what is actually going on. What are we? Like, are we just, and then you see in my TED talk, I start off with, have you ever seen someone take a belt to a puppy
Mhm.
and do this and smack, my hand? And I'm like, sadly, that happens every single day, but I'm not talking about that happening to puppies. I'm talking about that happening to children.
Mhm.
And when you like compare that, that's an insane thing. Even the etymology of the word spank means to hit a horse to make it run faster. So we don't call it hitting because hitting's not a cool word. Like, oh, do you hit your kids? No, I don't hit my kids. Do you spank your kids? Well, yeah, I spank my kids. Well,
Mhm.
it's crazy how we've accepted a narrative. But that was the first thing that changed like immediately. But then I went to therapy and again had judgment about that and like therapists. And I even had Christian leaders who were very influential. Oh, make sure you go to a Christian therapist. I'm like, dude, I'm actually tired of Christians.
Mhm.
I can give you every Bible answer. 'Cause I know what Christians are already saying. Since I know everything that is said in that world, I need to go find something outside that world because that world has not helped me. So I went to therapy, and that was the first time I started to learn what healthy behavior was like. And it was crazy. Like, the therapist would go, well, you say this, but a healthy parent would do this. I mean, simple things like, I don't know, hold you, like a healthy parent would hold you. And I'm like, yeah, like of course, but that wasn't even in my brain. Or I used to say this all the time because my dad used to say this, and I'd be like, I only know one way, and that's straight ahead. And I joke around, people think it's funny, like, I only, just fucking like go. But the therapist said to me one day, he goes, a train only goes where the tracks lead it. And if you can't stop and pivot your behavior, if you can't stop and pivot your actions, you are not in control of your own life. And I was like, dude, I have been operating on someone else's operating system. So that started to change. Anger started to change. My judgment of people stopped immediately. Um, it just humbled me. It just
Yeah.
humbled me in a way that I really did understand that, and it's become a little bit overused, but it really is. Why do people hurt people? I mean, ultimately, isn't this the question of like, why are kids bullies? Why are, like even at the simple thing from kid to kid or adult to child or adult to adult, like ultimately, shouldn't we be asking this question? Like, why are we hurting each other?
Mhm.
That's what I started to explore and realize that, wow, hurt people can only operate out of what they are, and that is
Hmm.
hurt. So they
Hmm.
will give hurt. So unless we stop it, face it, break it, then we're only going to continue to give hurt. So it really humbled me. And I have a lot of compassion for perpetrators, but the perpetrators have to come forth. We have to be healed enough as a society, healed enough as a people to do the inner work ourselves, to then hold space for those people that are perpetuating a brokenness amongst us to come out of the shadows and into the light. And doesn't mean we excuse without consequence. It does mean, though, we're not going to shame them and judge them. And if people really want to be free, because what's the alternative? We can't just go kill people, and we can't accept the behavior of them perpetuating the cycle. So, what is the alternative? I think the alternative is, and this is what I really in my heart want to see happen, is once enough people get healed that we hold space for those people that are, they know, they know their soul might not be in that body fully because of the trauma they experienced. And I know that's working with a lot of people, but they know deep down. And they just need someone powerful, strong enough to hold space for them to say, I'm not going to judge you. And this is part of the coaching that I've done with a lot of people, a lot of dark stuff that I go like, dang, man, wow. Do you want to stop? Do you want to be free? Sometimes they say no. If you don't, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting to see that as your perspective. For me, it's kind of challenging to know when a person has kind of gone too far, almost to the point of no return, because of all the evil that we're seeing in the world today with
Yeah.
people molesting, not even just molesting children, but trafficking
Oh,
children,
yeah. Yeah.
sexually abusing them,
Yeah.
you know, using them for organ harvesting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'm
or
not talking about that. So good point. That has to get eradicated off the earth.
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
talking about people like the average the average person who's still like, the
sure.
alcoholic or
Right,
the porn addict,
right.
or and one of the things therapists, because I was addicted to porn, I was drinking all the time, and the therapist asked me a question and it woke me up, and now I coach because I understand the connection. He goes, well, what type of porn? And I was like, holy shit, like, what do you mean what type of porn? That's a weird question to ask. I just told you that I'm struggling with porn. And
Yeah,
then I realized, wow, all these different types of porn are all tied to different types of trauma.
interesting.
And there's
Mhm.
books I've read about it. It's a really fascinating concept. But I mean, even in that, yeah. But to your point, like Jesus said, it's better that you were never alive. Why?
Mhm.
It's you cannot offend one of these little ones. And so what I'm saying is we like to jump to the extreme cases, but the
Yeah,
closest thing to heal is our neighbor next door and our
hmm,
self inside our own homes.
totally.
And I think God is waiting for us to acknowledge that inside of us, because, why point out the beam in your neighbor's eye when you have the mote in your own eye? It's like, yes, that happens and we have to stop it. But God's saying, I'll stop it. I'll stop it
Yeah.
when you are willing to stop it in yourself and face it. And I think that's part of this awakening. I think even having this conversation and like these are good questions. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. It's just my perspective of the
Yeah,
healing
but
that I've been on.
you may not have the answers, but the answers you do have serve such a great purpose for people,
Mm,
especially when it comes to where we're at today in 2025. I mean,
yeah.
we're seeing all of these big cities, especially the blue cities, where a lot of these young people have had no fathers in the home.
Right.
They're out there, in the middle of the night. They're all getting together in droves, and they're busting up liquor stores, and they're doing crazy things on subways, and there's it's like a lawless mentality.
Right.
And like some people might argue, I mean, I'm not arguing with your story. I think that
Oh,
a
sure.
lot of people should use spanking as like the very last thing that they would resort to,
Yeah.
if ever at all. Like
Yeah.
I think I was spanked twice, if I can remember, and then completely changed route, and I
Yeah.
corrected myself,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it kind
Yeah.
of worked for me. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that wasn't my father's intention wasn't to like beat the crap out of me or to do something. He just wanted me to know, hey, he's my father. I need to respect him because he's doing everything else to try to provide me with a good life. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but for all these kids out there that are just running amok, and a lot of people have said this is the example, a prime example of, spare the rod, spoil the child, especially in the conservative circles. You
But
know,
I gotta interrupt you real quick, if you
go
don't mind.
ahead.
If you don't mind, first of all, that term, and this is not for you. This is everyone listening. This is not a counter to
Sure.
that verse, that term, spare the rod, spoil the child, is not in the Bible.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah.
a
I know that.
that is a conjunction of two different verses that says that he that spareth his son, or spareth his rod, hateth his son, but he that chasteneth him loveth him betimes.
Hmm.
So he that chastens him loves him, uses his words of correction, but he that spareth his rod hateth his son. Well, how could that be? So they said, spare the rod, spoil the child. But the verse says, he that spareth his rod hateth his son. Now,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean? If you spare the rod, you hate your son? Yes, because we think the word spare, this is how, look, in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. The serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, yea, has God said? Are you sure that's what God says? The first thing that Satan does to the human is make the human question God's word. And she says, God said, we shall not touch it, or we shall not eat of it, neither shall we touch it lest we die. And he responds back, says, you shall not surely die. He knew, he had her right then, because when was the first sin?
The
Right then.
apple. Hmm.
No, no, right then, because God never said, don't touch it.
Mm.
In Genesis chapter 2, he just says, don't eat it. And then
Hmm.
you see at the end of Revelation, it says, add thou not into his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar, and no liar shall have his place in heaven. She lied.
Hmm.
No, check this out. Okay. So getting back to spare, the serpent has confused the human being to think spare means withholding.
Hmm.
He spare the rod, withhold the rod, spoil the child. But I thought we read in Psalm 23, a book previous to Proverbs, where you get the conflation of those verses that says, thy rod and thy staff, they what? Comfort. Oh, okay. So the thing that is supposed to bring comfort to us, all of a sudden has been conflated to bring fear to us. Now, check this out. Spare parts, what does that mean? Extra parts, right?
Extra parts. Yep.
Spare time,
Hmm.
extra
More
time.
extra time.
Spare anything means extra. Guess what? You that spare the rod in an extra way that it's not supposed to be used, you actually hate your son. But if you love your son, you'll use your words to correct him.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Does a child want to be hit or held?
They want to be held. They want to be
Of
loved.
course. But the adult has to heal the inner child in
That's
them
right.
so they don't get triggered and beat the child for something that inner child was going to get beat from that generation prior.
Okay.
So check this. So I'm not judging people, bro. You got to hear this. And anyone listen, I am not judging you. I have no judgment.
No, I love
I
the
also want to
dissection.
bring
You're
truth.
dissecting this for a way
Spare
for
means
us to,
extra. It doesn't
yeah,
mean withholding.
right.
The only time it means withholding is to beat a child. And then it's like, okay, hit your child with a rod. Let's just say not a hand, not a belt, literally a rod. How hard?
Hmm.
If God is so specific about how we are to live, how hard do you hit a child? Do you, if you really love that child, do you beat them to the inch of their life? That's love. It's not love. It's not love when you take it that far. And it's not love the minute you pick up the staff that was meant to defend the sheep and beat the wolves back that come to harm the sheep. Does the
Right.
sheep go, oh, the shepherd has the staff and the rod. Oh, thank God. Thank you, shepherd. And protect me from the. No, the wolf goes to the shepherd, shepherd, use that and beat these stupid sheep. And we've accepted a false narrative. And
Yeah.
I am very, very passionate. I'm willing to debate anyone about this anytime, not to be right, but to break the spell
Hmm.
Remember, the gospel is go spell. Jesus says,
Hmm.
go preach and teach. And the gospel is go spell.
Hmm.
We have to have a greater, more powerful spell than the spell that exists in the world.
Amen. I agree with that.
We have to break this spell.
So, explain that. Okay, so if you can connect that with generational curses, like
Mm,
because I remember you saying because you've been a part of a deliverance
yeah,
ministry.
yeah.
What do you know about generational curses, and how does that play into these cycles that we can break in our generation? That's what I'm wanting to do. And I love my dad so much. And Dad, if you're watching this, you did the best you can, bro.
Yeah. Not a
And
judgment on them. Yeah.
yeah, but because I know where my dad had come from his dad, from the stories I heard, I never even met my biological grandfather because of the bad things that he was doing. And then on my mom's side too, it's like the men weren't really described as the most distinguished of gentlemen. A lot of times they were like, "Oh, we don't talk about him," or "Oh, yeah, that was your grandfather," or it's like I I'm like sad that I can't even talk highly about my lineage because of all the stuff that they were involved in, and
Yeah.
from the liquor to the one of my grandfathers lived his life on a Harley and had children with like 8 different women in multiple
Wow.
states, and it's
Wow.
like I'm like, what is so there has to be something to the generational curse that has been trying to get to me. And I mean, I
Yeah.
rebuke it, and I'm just
Yeah.
trying to like
Good.
find solution. And because I
Good.
know a lot of people have thought about, well, is this a generational thing?
Well, what? All right. This is a great question. What's the root word of the word culture?
Cult.
Cult. That's right. The root word of culture is a cult. So we talk about culture all the time. Oh, they have a great culture, they have a bad culture, the workplace, what's culture, the culture of the country, society, whatever. The root word of culture is cult. And what is a cult? A cult is a defined language set that people have to strictly adhere to. And the moment they deviate from that language set, they are kicked out of the cult because language defines culture. How we speak creates the cult.
Hmm.
So if a blessing is done by the mouth, life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. If Jesus says, in that day thou shalt give an account of every idle word thou hast spoken, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Paul writes, be holy be holy as is written, be holy in all manner of conversation. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of thy mouth. Okay, so the mouth is God. Let's look at Genesis, and I'm going to get the curse, the generational curse, but let's look at Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And Genesis 1:3 says, and God said, let there be light. Allow, let means allow. So who's he talking to? First of all, this is another podcast for another day, but he's speaking to someone. Allow there to be light. And there was light, and God saw the light that it was good. So what's the opposite of good? Bad. What's
Bad.
the opposite of a blessing? A curse. How do you bless someone? Your mouth. How do you curse someone? Your
Your
mouth.
mouth. Hmm.
So Proverbs chapter 3, verse 32 says, for the froward is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. I'm like, wow, God, you have a secret? Yeah, God has a secret. It's interesting. Earlier in this chapter, it's some of my favorite verses, Proverbs 3, 5 through 7 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not into your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. The next verse says, um, what is it? Wait. Yeah. Be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord and depart from evil. And evil is live backwards. Evil, live. Devil is lived backwards. Choose you this day whom you will serve, the inversion or life. God brings life. Anything that takes from life is not of God. And this is why God says, and I'm going to answer this about the generational curses, but I think this is really important. I didn't even know we were going to
Yeah,
go there,
no, this
right?
is a great lead up. I love it.
Okay. So Adam and Eve hide themselves. They were afraid and they were ashamed because they were naked. And God says, who told you you were naked? Did you eat of the tree wherever I commanded you not to eat of? And Adam says, the woman thou gavest to be with me, she gave me the tree and I did eat. And God says to the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And she says, the serpent beguiled me and I did eat. And so immediately God curses the serpent and says, dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And then he turns to Adam and says, for dust thou art, and dust thou shalt return. Now, if people don't understand the truth of what God just said, the serpent lives on the death of man. God told the serpent, dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And then tells Adam, you're dust.
Wow.
This is in Genesis chapter 3. We're so
Wow.
focused on New Testament stuff, we don't even understand the origin of Scripture. God told mankind, your death will feed the serpent.
Yeah.
Okay. So life and death are in the power of the tongue. Those that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. All these things depart from the inversion of life, which means to strive for life, to go towards life, which is why anything that is bringing confusion is not of God, because confusion stops life. And you can talk about lifestyles, you can talk about anything that doesn't bring life is stopping God's intent to bring order. And this whole like Freemason narrative of like order from chaos or e pluribus unum, like all the things that they talk about. Well, it's no different than Genesis chapter 2. And the Spirit of God moved upon, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. So it goes dark to light in Scripture. They're just trying to supersede God's
Yeah.
light.
That's
Okay.
right.
So you talked about generational curses. The curse is passed from generation to generation. It's not just covens and witchcraft and incantations and spells and blood magic and black magic and white magic and green magic and all the different magics and all the different hierarchies and all the different. This is why the King James Bible, again, says about God, calls him the Most High. That term got taken out of Bibles. But when you go to the Most High, there is no power greater than that. And I will visit the iniquity upon the fathers unto the third and fourth generation of those that hate me.
Hmm.
That's where you get the term generational curses in the Ten Commandments. The curse comes from the language spoken. Spanking instead of hitting is a curse. Uh, you could break it down. Spare the rod, spoil the child. A curse. That is a curse. And that is a mantra that keeps that's more powerful than a group of witches around a cauldron on a Thursday night at a full moon doing all their black magic. No
Mhm.
different than Elijah says, great, prophets of Baal, do your thing. Whatever God calls down fire, that's the God that people will serve. Well, they do all their magic rituals. They cut
Yeah.
themselves, which is bloodletting. They bring all this to try to bring forth. And he's like, well, is your God pursuing? Is your God sleeping? Is your God low? Where is your God? And he pours water on that altar 3 times, and the fourth time came fire, and all the people were in wonder. This is the power of the Most High God. The Bible doesn't say there's not other gods. The Bible says you shall have no other gods before me. And this is the fallacy of Christians. We because we don't know our enemy. Jesus said, "Be wise as serpents." Well, who's the serpent? Start in Genesis 3 and work your way through the Scripture and learn what they believe so that you can be effective and equipped to save those that can be saved and liberate those who need liberation. No commander of any, I know you love Flynn. We could ask him, did you ever go to war without studying the enemy? Did you
They,
ever go to war without knowing the capabilities of what they do, how they think? No way.
they have always studied their enemies.
Always. But
Hmm.
Christians, for some reason, just don't, they're afraid and they're like, it's like, oh, we have to know. So, what is a generational curse? It starts first and foremost with the language that is spoken in the home. We are passing curses down how we speak to our children. I just said the Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue. Life and death both reside in the power of our tongue. And those that love it, meaning, remember, ahava means to give. So
Right.
those that give to it shall eat the fruit thereof. So if you give, you're going to receive whatever you give. So
Right.
speak life. And that breaks the curse. Because just like Moses' staff, Moses puts his staff down, it turns into a snake, and Pharaoh's like, big freaking deal.
Yeah.
Priest,
Yeah.
show them what you got. And they do the exact same thing. So they're like, hey, we're all equal here until Moses' serpent swallows those three serpents and God's power, the Most High God's power, is revealed. So when we speak life, it doesn't matter what was passed down, passed down. The only way that lies live is when there's darkness.
Hmm.
The truth is the light. It brings light into every situation. So that's the first and foremost. Now, then, when you get into generational curses of did God curse? So this is the last thing I'll share. Did God curse those people? Well, it says this in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 33. It says, the curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. The curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesses the habitation of the just. So it's the house, not the people. The habitation, not the people. We go and we, as conscious beings, have to decide which house are we going to abide in. Are we going to abide in the habitation of the just that speaks clearly, that is intentional with our words, that speaks in love, that speaks in the fruit of the Spirit? Or are we going to continue in a wicked way? Well, what is wickedness? Wickedness is continually, intentionally missing the mark and saying, I didn't miss the mark. Yeah, I beat my kids. I was beat. We got to have them tough. Or, whatever the excuse is perpetuating, that's where God cannot bless that.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. It's not personal. It's a system that God cannot have two lines of standards. He will only bless his standard, which is just. And just is akin to truth. So I guess a long answer to say the generational curses stop when we start speaking the truth. When we ask God to break and shatter everything, all teaching, doctrines, denominational teaching, anything from our parents, from our grandparents, from their parents, from any teacher, anywhere, at any time, in any realm, in any dimension, at any timeline, at all, that doesn't align to absolute truth. And how do we know if something's true or not? It's if we can breathe more deeply, because truth makes us free. And our soul in Hebrew is neshama, which means breath. And it says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 16, and God breathed into man, and man became a living soul. So our breath is the breath of God. And so that's why truth is so important, so that we can breathe. So the Bible says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And the Spirit will go where it's invited. And it's invited in the habitation of the just. So this is where I guess I'll stop this answer. I got a little preachy. I apologize, but
No, this is great. I'm
uh,
learning a lot, Lucas.
it's not just. I guess what I'm trying to break also the spell of in Christianity in America. I like how you say American Christianity are these platitudes and ideas that seem outside of ourself when the truth is inside of ourself.
Hmm. Hmm. That's
Jesus
so
said,
true.
who is without sin, cast the first stone. And they all dropped their stones and walked away. And he says, woman, where is thine accuser? And she said, they all left, Lord. And he says, neither do I accuse thee. Go and sin no more. Does that mean never make a mistake? Does that mean never say shit or damn or screw it?
Hmm.
No, it means I just showed you what perfect unconditional love is. Now go and live perfect unconditional love and give that perfect unconditional love to every
Right.
person you encounter. That's the law.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's given the roadmap. It's up to
Yes,
you to decide to make the journey.
that's right. And walk alongside him and go
Yeah.
back to the Father and abide in the Father, just as he abides in the Father. John says, I and my Father are one. Jesus said in John, I and my Father are one. He that abideth in me and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. Well, what is the fruit he's talking about? The fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, long suffering, goodness, gentleness, faith, temperance, meekness. Against such there is no law. And then Jesus says, for without me, he can do nothing. Meaning, I'm showing you the path back to the heart of the Father. And I guess the last thing I'll say here is that we are in the earth, and earth is an anagram for heart. And you take earth and you put the H at the end of earth and
Right?
you bring it to the front, and that's heart. And I think God is bringing us back to his heart by putting us back in relationship with the earth and with our communities and with our friends and family so that we can be the most healthy, honorable, and strong reflections of his glory in a time where it's confused and it is dark and many times it's sad and there's anger and there's division and cruelty and all these things, but God is looking for a reflection of his honor and glory. And brother, this podcast, these conversations, like, this is how we're going to show people that there is another way.
Amen, bro. Amen.
Mm.
I couldn't agree more. This is the new way that the information is going to spread is through the alternative news networks. We
Yeah.
are we are the news now.
Yeah,
And
we are.
so we are the information now. And
Yeah.
okay, so on the topic of generations, I know a lot of people they say, oh, this Gen Z generation, because you and I are millennials, and
Yeah.
they used to talk a whole heap of crap
Oh,
about
yeah.
our
Oh, yeah.
generation. Oh man, these millennials, look at these, look how soft
Yeah.
they are, man. We're
Yeah.
screwed.
Yeah.
And now they're saying that about the Gen Z generation. And yeah, from hindsight, you can see a lot of these really young people, how good they have it as far as luxuries and technology and these really, I don't know. It's just easy to see that they've had a harder life or an easier life than, so let's say, the World War II generation, which had a much harder life and upbringing. But what can you speak to as far as the generations that are coming underneath us, like with Gen Z? Are
Mm.
you seeing any changes at all with the young generation? Because from what I can see, I think that some of them are awakening faster than even the boomer generation, like
Yeah.
our parents' generation, because they're it's almost as if they're like they've been born into this plastic fake world around them, this synthetic world
Yeah.
of digital, everything's digital, and to where they're starting to like ask questions
Yeah.
and poke around, because I've talked to a few of them in passing, and I'll admit, like I've dismissed a few of them because I think, oh, they're just young and dumb and haven't figured it out. But I think a lot of them are. I think a lot of them
Yeah.
are. So do you see this Gen Z generation? Like, are they going to be able to seek this truth that you're talking about, to actually put some, puzzle pieces back together faster?
I think there are the last generation that breaks the cycle. I think the alpha generation they've come in since 2012. The alpha generation is a different level of child. A lot of them are autistic, sadly, because they were given,
Hmm.
poison. But
Yep.
I also think that God's not mocked. God knows exactly what he's doing, even with bodies that had to physically adapt to those poisons that the autistic, which Gen Z has a lot of, um, but even the non-autistic, the non-neurodivergent, God is God cannot be defeated. This is one thing that he cannot be defeated. When he says you've made us more than conquerors, a conqueror is one who cannot be conquered. It's an impossibility to be conquered. God cannot be defeated. So you have Gen Z who is here to break the cycle and end this timeline. that we've lived in for a very long time. And I see them rejecting, I see them going back to flip phones. I see them craving, yes, they have access to the digital technology because they were coined the digital natives, they're birthed into it. But there's a return back to the land, there's a return back to community. And, um, I often wonder, why did they call the things they called it? Like, why is TikTok at the end? Why is that the last social media platform before, because it's TikTok. It's literally the end. The clock is ticking and winding down. None of this is by accident. You have X and X, you have Gen X, XRP, XLM, you have X, you have
X, yep.
X everything, X the platform. Well, what does that actually mean? I think that means that we are at the time of split and divergence, and
Hmm.
that there's some that are going to go that's no different than Joshua, Joshua being Yeshua, Yeshua saying, choose you this day whom you will serve. And some are going to go this way and some are going to go that way. And, it doesn't matter if it's New Age, the books of Ra, Law of One, all these spiritual New Age books. It doesn't matter. Jesus, they all talk about this harvest, and the harvest is coming. What it looks like, how it happens, I don't know. But I think Gen Z is, we should be praying and thanking God for Gen Z because I think they're breaking the cycle once and for all. And the system, the question is, and I think you and I talked about this, and I got to hop here in a sec, but when AI merges with quantum computing, humans will no longer be able to escape this question. It will be forced upon us all is, what does it mean to be human? And some will say there is great value in being a human. And some will say there is no value in being a human. Let me upload my consciousness and forever live in perpetuity in a digital world, and I'll be able to learn in infinite time and space. And then there will be others that remember, oh, this human that we all are was made in the image of a very loving, very intentional, and very powerful creator. And that creator cannot be defeated. And I think this is what's coming with Gen Z being the last generation before Alpha. They tell us that it's Alpha, it's a new, there's a birthing new. We are at the end of a timeline, and I'm very excited. I feel a sense of excitement. I'm not Pollyanna. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of strength that needs to be applied in places
Hmm.
that have been in darkness. But through it all, I know all those kids are going to need a voice to heal. I know they're going to need, the healing is coming. And it says in Revelation chapter 20 that God wipes away all tears from our eyes. And you think about that, like, man, why are we crying? Because the truth that we have to share in that day, thou shalt give an account. Yeah, we will be the ones saying all the things. God's going to say, tell me all the pain, tell me everything, what
Hmm.
happened to you. And God is going to extract every single thing out of every person who's ever experienced anything but his absolute, infinite, and unconditional and eternal love. Anything less than that is a miss. And when we understand that, bro, I think
Hmm.
everything changes. So that's why I think Gen Z is, we need to pray for them. We need to encourage them to stay human.
Absolutely. And that's where I think that in those times when that does happen, that's going to unite all people around the world,
Yeah.
especially here in America, where they've kind of put us into um, this game show of pinning people against
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
And we're, like you said earlier in the show, like we're all broken to some level or another.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why, maybe, people on the right see people on the left as broken because they're more flamboyant with their mannerisms and
Sure.
the way that
Sure.
their art they have a lot of creative brain power that they
Yeah.
like to put themselves out there, but there's just as many broken people on the right.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that they divide us on red and blue, Republican, Democrat, all of that's gonna collapse, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. I agree.
And just like we saw, because for those of us who lived through 9/11, which was super tragic and was a type of MK Ultra done to the masses on
100%.
purpose, but we'll save that for another show. But what I thought was most beautiful out of a tragedy out of a tragic day was September 12th when
Mm,
everybody was
yeah.
flying American
Yeah.
flags.
Loving
You
each other,
know,
hugging each other.
everybody was loving each other.
That's right.
It
That's right.
doesn't matter if you were in inner city or out in rural country,
That's
if
right.
you were black or white, rich or poor. Like I saw, I was 18 turning 19, but I remember it like it was yesterday because I
Mm,
never seen that before.
right.
I
Right.
never seen that because it was always like division, division, division.
Yeah.
And I feel that what you just described, when God makes his moves to get all people to basically drop to their knees and give everything that has ever broken them to him,
Yes.
that then we can begin the healing process
Mm,
as a unified people,
mm,
as we the people, and we won't care about identity politics anymore
right.
because that's not helping us in our lives. Like it's
Mhm.
not, we're not seeing any fruit from being divided or holding on to all that pain and suffering.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
it's too much energy to not like people, or it's too much energy to hate somebody.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
That's
that
right.
is exhausting.
That's right.
No one wants to live in that prison system,
Man. And I'll
you
tell
know?
you the last thing that before we end this is I cannot describe the level of freedom that I feel. I mean, physical. Like I breathe air for the first time in my life. And before that, I've been breathing water. Like physically, I would not trade anything to live in this freedom. And I didn't understand it until I went through it. And I know maybe many people are like, what? I'm just telling you that as strong and powerful and smart and articulate that we are, there is so much more. There is an infinite breath that we can take that is going to fill our lungs when we let out all of it. And that, man,
I'm on that journey. For those watching this, I will be humble and honest with you that I am in my healing. I'm not healed yet. And my
mm,
friend was right. She was totally right, and I'm not afraid or ashamed of it anymore. I feel that God brought you in my life, Lucas, for a reason to help me sort through these things from a biblical perspective.
mm,
And I feel that that there's a lot I'm going to unpack in days, weeks, and months, years to come. Hopefully not years, because I want to get to that
yeah,
feeling.
I'm still on the journey. I'm still healing on, different, it's like layers,
Yeah. I just want some weight to be lifted off of me because I feel like I'm a single guy, single parent.
Yeah,
I do want God to bring me the right wife when
yeah,
it's the right time. And I know he knows I ain't ready for it because when I am, he'll know it. I'll know it for sure.
yeah,
And I won't have, it'll just fall into place. But in the meantime, I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of explorations
yeah.
to do. And I appreciate you coming on my show today, brother.
Man,
I'm so blessed and thankful for you.
thanks, bro. I
Mhm.
am honored and I hope, man, I feel like kind of my side I talked a lot, but I just thank you, brother. And I hope it blesses someone out there that they can know that everything's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, God is so in control. It's
Yeah.
not even funny how in control he
Yeah.
is. I'm just going to do
Right.
a quick share screen. I just want people to know where they can find you. So I have here. Um, let's see here. We have lucasmack.com is where you can learn more about Lucas and all of the different endeavors that he's involved in, his story, all of the different retreats that he's put on and putting on, coaching and speaking. You can do a deep dive into Lucas and all of the work that he is doing in his life. You're very inspirational, my friend.
Thanks, brother.
And I just encourage all of you guys to show him some love and some support. Check out his show. You could find him on just about every platform at this
Yeah.
point, right, Lucas? Like
Yep.
you're on
Yep.
everything.
Yeah. And my latest episode's coming out with you. So I'm excited to get that out there.
Yeah, buddy. We getting all kinds of things weird, wacky, and wild, bro.
That's right. I
There's
love it.
like there's no holding back. I mean, seriously, I want to bring you back on the show where we can do some other dives into some of the weird phenomenons that we are seeing with, especially because of your background in theology and Holy Spirit,
Mm.
all the things that the dark side is doing to usher in entities into the world.
Yeah.
to try to throw us off track, on a
Yeah.
spiritual level. So
Yeah.
I can't wait for our next episode,
Yeah.
bro. It's
Same,
going to be tight.
same, brother. Well, thank you. And I love you, brother. Thank you.
I love you too, Luke. I'll talk to you soon, Lucas.
Sounds good.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Stay blessed.
Thank you. See you,
All right.
brother.
See you soon.